There was a moment when I realized something uncomfortable. I wasn't actually doubting myself. I was waiting for someone else to confirm I was allowed to trust what I already knew. Hey, friends, I'm Sandy Bartlett, and this is Journey to Self Power Beyond People Pleasing. This podcast is for women who are done outsourcing their confidence just to stay connected. Today's episode is part 3 of a 5-part series called Loving Without Shrinking, with partner episodes on my YouTube channel. And this conversation is for you if you've ever felt clear about something until the person you love didn't see it the same way. Before we get further into that, for our intuitive moment, the card that came through for this week is Pleiades from the Work Your Light Oracle deck. Double mission, channeling and uplifting humanity. There's a part of you that knows things you haven't been taught, that receives guidance you can't always explain. And when the people around you don't speak that language, it's easy to keep it quiet. This week is about honoring what you know, even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else. For a long time, I thought self-trust meant being confident, clear, certain, unshakable. What I didn't notice was how quickly that confidence wobbled when someone important didn't understand where I was coming from. Not argue with me, not push back, just didn't get it. And the wobble wasn't because I was wrong. It was because I'd learned to measure my knowing against someone else's reaction. I remember standing in my kitchen one afternoon, sunlight coming through the window. It was just a normal day. My husband said something about my body. We've been having a conversation about my desire to drop weight. And he said, "You can lose weight if you want, just don't lose too much." He loves curves, so he meant it as affection. But what I heard in that moment was another voice telling me what my body should be. And here's the thing. I'd heard versions of this my entire life. One partner told me he wasn't attracted to me because I gained weight. Another told me not to change at all. And here's this one giving me parameters. All different, all well-meaning, but all external. And in that moment, something shifted. I didn't react. I didn't explain. I didn't comply. I paused, and I asked myself a very important question I'd never really asked before. What do I want? Not what he wants, not what the last one wanted, not what the scale says, not what anyone else thinks my body should be. Me. What do I actually want? That pause was the beginning, because in that pause, I realized I'd been doing this for decades, collecting external opinions about my body, about my choices, about what mattered to me. And I'd been using those opinions as proof that I was on the right track, proof that I wasn't being selfish, proof that I was making good decisions. But when I asked myself what I wanted, there was silence, because I'd stopped asking that question years ago. I'd replaced it with, what will keep the peace? What will make sense to him? What will he understand? And I called that considering other perspectives, but it wasn't. It was abandoning my own. For your inner reflection, as you're listening, just ask yourself this. When was the last time you felt clear about something and then immediately looked outside yourself for confirmation? Not because you were confused, but because clarity without agreement felt lonely. Let's reframe what agreement really does. Agreement feels like safety. It tells your nervous system, I'm not alone. But agreement isn't truth, and it isn't trust. It's comfort. And when comfort becomes the requirement for self trust, your knowing becomes condition. If you learned early on that harmony mattered, that being understood kept things calm, that connection depended on sameness, of course, disagreement feels destabilizing. Of course, you soften. Of course, you explain. Of course, you pause your own knowing. That doesn't mean anything is wrong with you. It means your system learned how to stay connected. For our Whispers of Wisdom, there's a quote from Glennon Doyle that stopped me in my tracks. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be yourself. Because somewhere along the way, a lot of us confused the two. We started believing that being ourselves required approval, that our truth needed witnesses to be valid. But it doesn't. Take a breath right now and notice what happens in your body when you imagine holding your knowing without needing anyone else to understand it. Is there tension? Relief? Both? Just notice. Because that feeling, that's information. And here's the turning point. After that moment in the kitchen, I made a choice. I decided to release weight, not for him, not for the partner who said I'd gained too much, not for anyone's parameters or preferences, for me, because I wanted to feel different in my body. And I stopped using the word lose, because when we lose something, it implies we want it back. I didn't. I was releasing what I didn't need anymore, including the belief that my body belonged to anyone else's opinion. That was the moment I stopped needing him to get it, because I finally got it myself. This is exactly the kind of moment we slow down and explore inside my community journey to self, the awakening. Not to force clarity, not to rush decisions, but to help you stay with yourself even when agreement isn't there. The link is in the show notes if you want to check it out. For your empowerment action this week, notice when you start explaining before anyone asks. That's the moment to pause. Not to stop yourself, just to see what you're reaching for. Are you reaching for understanding, or are you reaching for permission? The moment I stopped needing him to get it was the moment I realized I didn't need permission to trust what I already knew. We'll keep opening this next time. Until next time, be true to you.